My family mocked my trucking career for 15 years, then tried to trap me with a $6,000 restaurant bill. I said no, tossed $40, and walked out for good. I, a 36-year-old guy, have been on the road for nearly 15 years. I began as a corporate driver, earning money, sleeping in truck stops and missing every holiday. Back then, I was earning around $38,000 per year while dealing with dispatchers who regarded us like disposable parts. The cab of my first assigned truck smelled like 3 decades of cigarettes and fast food. But I had a plan. I saved every cent. I lived like a monk in a $600 a month efficiency apartment with cinderblock walls and a shower that barely suited my 6'2" frame, and finally purchased my own rig, a used Peterbilt 380-9 with 780,000 miles that I patched up myself. Then I purchased another. Now I operate a modest fleet of 8 vehicles, hire 12 drivers and 3 office workers, and make approximately $380,000 per year after expenses, fuel bills, maintenance, and payroll. Not too terrible for a dropout letdown. My trucking business did not start immediately. I drove for others for 5 years before saving the $45,000 down payment for my first used truck. I attended night classes in business management at the community college. My relatives didn't seem to notice. I investigated the most profitable routes, specialized in chilled items, which pay higher rates, and established a reputation for timely deliveries. Eventually I negotiated contracts with regional distributors who were unwilling to deal with the hassles of fleet maintenance and driver administration. My best friend Cole saw it coming from the start. When everyone else was laughing at my truck driver phase, he was the only one who received it. "These people don't understand business," he would declare bluntly. "They think success only comes with a piece of paper on the wall." Cole has an auto repair shop across town, and is as subtle as a sledgehammer. This is exactly why we've been so close since high school. We played offensive line together. He was the right guard. I was a right tackle. And we protected our quarterback as if our life depended on it. That mentality persisted after graduation. Atlas, a German Shepherd, was rescued 2 years ago, and I adopted him. Some jerk abandoned him when he went out of state. He's with me practically everywhere. Riding shotgun in the F-350. Sleeping at the office, and so forth. Best decision I've ever made. When dealing with a family like mine, having someone who is truly devoted makes a difference. Atlas has become the unofficial mascot for my company. My drivers bring him snacks. The ladies at the office treat him rotten. And my clients always inquire about him. He has greater social skills than I do, honestly, and he has a terrible feeling about people. If Atlas dislikes you, he typically has a good reason. Meanwhile, my 39-year-old brother Victor took the proper way. He earned his accounting degree, married his college love, Lauren, and they had 2 children, a boy and a girl, aged 8 and 6. Isn't it the perfect American dream? Victor earns roughly $90,000 working for a large firm downtown. He has a 4,000 square foot property in the suburbs with a $2,800 monthly mortgage, a leased BMW 5 Series that he can barely afford, and approximately $40,000 in credit card debt that he does not discuss. Dad believes he walks on water. Every Christmas, Victor brags about their recent family vacation or the new golf clubs he purchased. However, I did see his credit card statements when he left them on the counter when I was in their house. Minimum payments are made throughout the board. The guy is drowning in debt, but he acts as if his life is on the line. My parents are also pieces of work. Dad, a 63-year-old guy, spent his entire life as a middle management at a manufacturing facility, often moaning about being passed up for advancement. His favorite line is, "I would have been VP if it weren't for office politics." Nothing to do with his lousy performance or tendency to claim credit for other people's efforts. Mom, a 61-year-old female, worked part-time at a doctor's office where she largely gossiped about the patients and judged them based on their medical issues. They both have the boomer attitude, in which they believe they worked harder than anyone else, despite having things easier than any generation since. Dad liked repeating stories about how he paid for college by working summers, conveniently ignoring the fact that college cost roughly $500 per semester back then. Mom brags about buying their first property at 23, but fails to reveal that it cost 3 times their annual salary, rather than the 8 to 10 times that young people today pay. Over time our connection deteriorated. Every time I visited, which wasn't often, Dad would make these disparaging remarks about my employment choice. "I saw one of those big rigs jackknife on the interstate," he'd say over supper. "I guess that's what happens when they let anyone get a CDL these days." Or he'd mention Victor's new promotion in front of me, then ask if I'd considered returning to school. What they didn't realize or decided to ignore was that, while Victor was living paycheck to paycheck in his McMansion, I was quietly developing something significant. My fleet generates $1.8 million in gross income. I have commercial contracts with 3 major distributors, a real estate portfolio of 4 rental properties that earn $5,700 per month in passive income, and a 7-figure investment account. My sister-in-law Lauren was aware though. When Victor wasn't present, she hinted at their financial problems. Victor had to take a cash advance to pay for Timmy's baseball camp, she told me. Or, we're thinking about refinancing again to consolidate some debt. Surprisingly, I've helped them out more than once. When Victor's mortgage was underwater during the housing crisis, I lent him $15,000 and never discussed it again. When Dad's transmission failed in his beloved Cadillac, I paid the $4,800 repair price. When Mom needed dental work that wasn't covered by insurance, I handled the $3,200 bill without a word. When Victor's child needed emergency surgery and their insurance had a $5,000 deductible, guess who paid? They easily forgot about these occasions when it came time to respect what I'd created. That's how families operate, Cole once informed me when we were watching a game. They'll take your help but still treat you like garbage. It's the Thompson family special. He didn't make any errors. I also have a half-sister, Maya, a 27-year-old girl, from my father's brief affair. Mom accepted him back, but always treated Maya as an outsider. Maya and I actually get along well. She is a tattoo artist who has never bought into her family's foolishness. She is the only person I have frequent touch with. For the past 4 years, I've scarcely seen any of them. Last Christmas, I sent gifts to the kids but did not show up for dinner. Maya came to see me on the road once or twice. That was it. I was too busy creating my business to cope with their drama. My blood pressure decreased by 15 points when I stopped making regular contact, according to my doctor. Then, last month, I received the call. Dad was retiring, and they were hosting a special family party at Morton's Steakhouse, reportedly the fanciest restaurant in town. Mom called first, then Victor, and then Mom again. Maya texted me. They're being weird about this dinner. I think they're up to something. I should have listened to her, but like an idiot, I assumed they truly wanted to patch things up. After 15 years of their stupidity, I had a modest hope that they would ultimately view me as more than a failure. I drove up to Morton's in my F350 Platinum 7.3-liter Powerstroke diesel with 1,500 pound-feet of torque and a custom flatbed in the back for hauling parts as needed. It cost me $84,000 cash with no financing. Atlas sat in the passenger seat, staring at me as if he knew what was coming. I instructed him to stay and crack the windows. He'd be okay for a few hours. The valet examined my truck, showing care for the vehicle and bewilderment regarding the driver. He wasn't sure if I was someone important in business attire or just a contractor who had taken a wrong turn. I handed him the keys and instructed him to park somewhere noticeable. It has a security mechanism that is readily triggered. I lied. I just wanted it so I could view it from inside. Trust concerns perhaps. But they have served me well. The valet looked at me as if I were carrying meat to the kitchen. Whatever. I've seen that look my entire adult life. People think I'm just an uneducated grunt who takes things from point A to point B. They don't comprehend I handle complicated logistical operations, manage a multi-million-dollar firm, and earn more in a month than most of them do in a year. Their stupidity is not my problem. Inside, I noticed them at a large table in the middle of the restaurant. Dad was holding court, loudly discussing his legacy at the company. Victor sat next to him, nodding to everything like a dashboard bobblehead. Mom was on Dad's other side, occasionally smiling, the phony smile she keeps for public appearances. Lauren appeared uneasy, checking her phone repeatedly. The children were not present. They were most likely with a babysitter. Maya had not arrived yet. There were also a few that I didn't recognize. It turned out to be Dad's boss, Samuel, and his wife Julia. Great. An audience. When Dad saw me, he did not stand up or do anything. Just nodded and said, "Well, the prodigal son returns. I thought you might be too busy with your trucks already." It began with contempt. I should have walked out right away. I started to sit in the empty chair next to Lauren, but Victor swiftly spoke up. "Actually, Ryan, that's for Maya. You can grab one from another table. This setup is for immediate family and Dad's guests of honor." I gazed at him for a second, taking in what he was saying. I'm not part of the direct family. Mom rushed in with an excuse about the seating arrangement. I looked around the table. Everyone was watching as if this were an exam. Victor had the arrogant look he'd worn since we were children. I grabbed a chair from a nearby vacant table and wedged myself between the wall and the corner of their table. The server approached, confused by the sitting arrangement, but said nothing. "Just some water for now," I advised him. That's when I started to notice things. Dad and Victor kept swapping these expressions. Mom repeatedly emphasized the need of proper retirement planning. Samuel and Julia appeared to be utterly unconscious of any stress, simply glad to be receiving a free supper. When Maya came, she took one look at the setting, arched an eyebrow at me sitting off to the side, and went straight for it. "This feels like a setup," she muttered as she hugged me. "Yep," I gently responded. "Let's see how it goes." She sat in her seat, unaware that no one had reserved a seat for her until I attempted to do so. Another telltale sign. Then the ordering began. Dad went first, proudly stating that he'd have the tomahawk ribeye for $165. Victor and Mom followed suit, placing equally pricey orders. Victor's wife, Lauren, seemed visibly distressed when he ordered both the lobster tail add-on and the black truffle butter, quietly mouthing something resembling, "We can't afford this." Samuel and Julia ordered the surf and turf. Mom made a huge show of urging that they also get appetizers. I soon figured that they had already spent almost $2,000 on one supper. As the food arrived and the beverages poured, it became clear what was happening. Every few minutes, someone would make a comment about my trucking business or inquire how I was doing financially. "Those big rigs must cost a fortune in fuel these days," Victor commented at one point. "What are you paying? Like $5 a gallon?" "Around that," I said, not disclosing that I had bulk contracts with 3 fuel suppliers that maintained my costs 22% lower than retail, as well as a fleet card that provided me an additional 5% rebate. "Ryan's probably doing better than you think," Maya said. "He's actually—" "Oh, I'm sure he's fine," Mom hastily said. "Though it must be hard living in that tiny apartment." I nearly laughed. I hadn't lived in an apartment for some years. I owned a house outright on 5 acres outside the city for $410,000, purchased in cash 2 years ago. But they wouldn't know because none of them had ever visited. My home features a 3-car garage where I keep my weekend car, a 2023 Corvette Z06 that I purchased as a gift for myself after obtaining a significant contract, a well-equipped home gym, and a workshop where I restore vintage motorcycles as a hobby. I am now working on a 1978 Harley Shovelhead that is almost finished. But Mom, I'm in a small apartment. As dessert menus were handed out, Dad sat back in his chair, noticeably drunk, and said, "Let's go all out. One of everything for the table." The waiter agreed eagerly and raced off to place the order. Victor turned to me with what he probably thought was a subtle expression and added, "By the way, Ryan, we all figured since you missed so many family events over the years, you'd want to handle the bill tonight. Sort of a makeup gift for Dad's retirement. We already told the server." And there it was, the underlying reason for the invitation. All these years, I worried if I was the problem. But this verified everything. They didn't consider me family. They viewed me as a pocketbook. 3 hours and many drinks later, the server appeared with a black leather folder. He placed it in front of me without hesitation, saying, "Whenever you're ready, sir," with a smile. The table became utterly silent. Even Samuel and Julia appeared to understand something was wrong. Dad was looking at me eagerly, one eyebrow lifted. Mom had that smile she gives when she pretends everything is okay. Victor actually smirked. I grabbed the folder and opened it casually. $5,850.76. Almost $6,000 for a supper. I could have purchased a set of Michelin X-Line Energy Z tires for my entire fleet for that much. To put things in perspective, $5,850 is what? One of my trucks does an excellent 3-day trip from Chicago to Dallas. That includes 60 hours of operation, 900 miles of wear and tear, fuel prices, driver compensation, insurance, and other expenses. They spent that much on a single supper. I closed the folder and laid it in front of me without saying anything. The silence stretched awkwardly. "Well?" Dad finally said. "Are you going to take care of that or what?" I looked around the table. "Did anyone here actually ask if I was willing to pay for dinner tonight?" Victor scoffed. "Come on, don't be difficult. We all know you've got the cash. Those trucks of yours must bring in something. So because I have money, which by the way, I earned by busting my ass for 15 years in a job you all look down on, I'm automatically responsible for a $6,000 dinner bill that I didn't agree to." Mom leaned forwards. "Ryan, this is your father's retirement dinner. Don't make a scene." "I'm not making a scene," I explained gently. "I'm just asking a simple question. When exactly did I agree to cover tonight's bill?" Dad's face was turning red. "This is ridiculous. Just pay the damn bill so we can go home." I picked up the folder again, looked at it carefully, and placed it directly in front of my father. No. That single word fell like a bombshell. Dad's mouth practically dropped open. "What did you just say?" he exclaimed. I said no. "I'm not paying for this." Victor went in. "You can't be serious." This was the arrangement. "An arrangement none of you bothered to discuss with me," I remarked. "You just assumed, like you've always assumed things about me." Samuel and Julia appeared exceedingly uncomfortable. Samuel cleared his throat. "Maybe we should contribute our portion." No, Dad replied immediately. "This isn't about you. My son is just being difficult." I slumped back in my chair. "I'm not being difficult. I'm setting a boundary. Something I should have done years ago." Maya tried to hide a smile behind her fingers. Lauren stared carefully at her empty plate. Mom's voice lowered to the lethal whisper she used when she was furious. "Ryan James Thompson. You will pay this bill right now, after everything we've done for you." That had me laughing. Actually, laugh aloud. "After everything you've done for me? Let's review, shall we? You belittled my career choice for 15 years. You excluded me from family events. You've never once visited my business or my home. Dad, you told your golf buddies I was between jobs when I was building a $1 million company. None of you, except Maya, even know what my company does or how successful it's become." Dad started to interrupt, but I raised my hand. "No, I'm not finished. You know what successful retirement planning actually looks like? It looks like the diversified portfolio I started building at 25. It looks like living below your means and investing the difference. Not blowing $6,000 on dinner and expecting someone else to cover it." I took out my wallet, placed $40 on the table for my drink and tip, and began walking away. "Ryan," Mom called after me. "You can't just leave." I turned around for the last time. "Watch me." The expressions on their faces were priceless. Victor appeared to have been smacked. Dad was becoming purple. Mom was performing her frightened Victorian lady routine. As I walked out, I could hear the manager approaching the table. The night was going to become even more miserable for them. I got halfway to my pickup when I heard footsteps behind me. Lauren, Victor's wife, appeared panicked. "Ryan, please," she begged, coming up with me. "They really can't cover this. Victor's been laid off for 3 months. He hasn't told anyone." That halted me in my tracks. "What?" She nodded, appearing depressed. "The credit cards are maxed out. We're behind on the mortgage. Your parents aren't in great shape either. Your dad's retirement package wasn't what he expected. And you thought the solution was to trick me into paying for a $6,000 dinner?" "It wasn't my idea," she replied immediately. "Victor and your dad cooked this up. They figured you wouldn't make a scene in public, especially with Samuel there. Why didn't Victor just ask me for help directly?" "Pride," she replied simply. "And your dad convinced him this would work." I almost felt bad. Then I recalled 15 years of snarky remarks, marginalization, and judgment. Victor had told our extended family that my business was merely a phase, even after I'd made my first $1 million in revenue. Dad introduced Victor's children as his grandchildren, but referred to me as our younger son, as if I were still a teenager rather than an adult running a successful business. "Tell Victor he can call me tomorrow," I eventually said. "We can talk about a loan. But I'm not going back in there, and I'm definitely not paying for that ridiculous dinner." Lauren nodded quickly and returned to the diner. I got into my truck and sat there for a minute, staring out the window. I could see them all arguing around the table. Samuel and his wife took out their wallets and obviously contributed what they could. Atlas perked up when I got in, wagging his tail slightly against the seat. At least someone was pleased to see me. The server hovered around, becoming increasingly disturbed. The manager had joined him. I could only picture how the scene would unfold. But my son was supposed to pay. "Well, he clearly isn't going to." "This is outrageous, sir. We still need someone to cover the bill." I started the engine and drove off. My phone instantly began to fill up with texts begging that I return. I shut it off and drove about for a bit, feeling lighter than I have in years. Driving relaxes me. It always has. There's something about being on the wide road that puts everything into perspective. That's why I love trucking from the start. Even when the pay was bad and the hours were long, you had time to think. And that night, I wondered why I had ever anticipated anything different from them. They'd repeatedly revealed their identities to me. It was time I trusted them. I switched on my phone the next morning to see 17 missed calls and roughly 30 SMS. Most were from my relatives, but one from Samuel, Dad's supervisor, piqued my interest. "Ryan, this is Samuel Williams from dinner last night. I got your number from the server. I think we need to talk. There's more going on with your father's retirement than you know." That was intriguing. I called him right back. "Ryan." "Yes. Thank you for calling back," he replied, sounding fatigued. "Look, I feel like I need to clear something up. I'm not your father's boss. I'm his financial advisor." "What the hell?" "Last night wasn't what your father made it out to be," Samuel explained. "He told me it was a family dinner to celebrate your new business partnership with him. Something about you bringing him on as a consultant for your trucking company." I almost choked. "That is utter fiction. He's never been in my business." "I figured as much," Samuel said. "Look, I don't normally discuss clients' situations, but given what happened last night, I think you should know the truth. That dinner last night wasn't actually a retirement celebration. Your father isn't retiring. He was fired 3 months ago for misappropriating company funds. They gave him a choice: face criminal charges, or quietly resign with no benefits." My mind was reeling. "And the dinner?" "Your father and brother set it up. They told us you were wealthy and wanted to treat everyone to celebrate a new business venture. We had no idea they expected you to pay until things got awkward. So they lied to get me there and then tried to charge me without notice." Classy. Samuel cleared his throat. "There's more. Your father has been making some questionable financial decisions for years. He's essentially broke. The house has a second mortgage, his 401k is depleted, and he's got significant credit card debt. He's been telling everyone he's fine, but he's not." After appreciating Samuel for his honesty, I hung up and called Maya right away. "Did you know Dad got fired?" I inquired when she picked up. "What? No, I thought he was retiring." She was taken aback. "That explains why he and Mom have been selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace, though." "What kind of stuff?" "Mom's jewelry, the riding lawn mower, Dad's golf clubs. I thought they were just downsizing." The more I dug, the worse things got. Victor had not only been laid off, he had been sacked for falsifying expense records. Dad has already burned through his 401k. Mom had been telling folks that I vowed to look after them when they retired. This is pure fantasy. They'd been living beyond their means for years, hoping to guilt me into bailing them out. The meal was their first attempt to access the bank of Ryan. I called Cole that afternoon and told him about it while throwing a tennis ball to Atlas in the backyard. "You've got to be freaking kidding me," remarked the guy. "So, let me get this straight. They treat you like dirt for 15 years, then expect you to cover their asses when their financial house of cards collapses. Classic Thompson family." He was correct, as always. Cole has been my reality check since high school. When I was considering purchasing my first truck, he sat me down with a calculator and went over the numbers with me. When I was contemplating about hiring my first employee, he helped me calculate the true cost beyond wages. And when I dated that insane woman who keyed my car after 3 weeks, he was the one who stated, "I told you she was nuts. But you had to learn the hard way." So when Cole predicted that my family would crawl back with their hands out, I knew it was just a matter of time. 3 days after the Mortons incident, I received a text from Dad saying, "We need to talk. Family meeting at our house tomorrow at 6. There was no apology or acknowledgement of what had transpired. Just a demand for my presence, as if I were still a child who could be bossed around. I arrived just on schedule, pulling into their driveway in my truck. Atlas sat alert in the passenger seat. I chose to leave him in the truck again, partly because Mom is allergic, but largely because I needed a quick escape route. The house appeared to be the same as always from the outside, but I noticed the lawn hadn't been cut in weeks and Dad's beloved Cadillac was missing from the driveway. Inside, everyone was waiting. Mom, Dad, Victor, Lauren, and, surprise, Maya. They looked awful. "Have a seat, son," Dad said, nodding toward the couch. I remained standing. "I'd rather hear what this is about first." Dad cleared his throat. "We've hit a rough patch. I'm sure you figured that out by now, the company. Well, there was a misunderstanding about some funds, and they decided to part ways." "You mean you got fired for stealing?" I asked plainly. His cheeks reddened. "It wasn't stealing. It was an unauthorized loan I was going to pay back." "You were taking company money without permission. That's the definition of stealing, Dad. You don't understand the pressure I was under," he said. "We had appearances to maintain." "And Victor?" Victor cast a short glance up. "Creative accounting. They didn't appreciate my methods." "Creative accounting," I reiterated. So fraud. Victor did not deny it. He just stared back down at his hands. So now what? I inquired, despite the fact that I was already aware of the outcome. Mom jumped in. We thought, as family, we could help each other out just until things stabilize. The dinner was a test, Dad admits. We needed to see if you'd step up when needed. I laughed. A test I apparently failed. This isn't a joke, Ryan, Mom insisted. We're about to lose the house. Victor's family may have to move in with us. We require assistance. I looked around at everyone. Let me get this straight. You've spent my entire adult life looking down on me for being a truck driver. You've mocked my career, excluded me from family events, treated me like I was nothing. Now that you've screwed up your lives, you expect me to swoop in and fix everything. You're doing well, Dad countered. Those trucks must be worth something. They are. I've built a successful business despite all of you, not because of you. Maya spoke up. Ryan, they asked me to talk to you too. I told them they were crazy, but they wouldn't listen. I turned to face her. It's all right, Maya. This isn't your fault. I then addressed the rest of them. Here's what's going to happen. I'm not giving you money to maintain the lifestyle you think you deserve. What I will do is offer Victor a job. Victor's head snapped upward. A job doing what? Driving one of my trucks. The silence was terrible. You want me to be a truck driver? Victor finally asked, disgusted in his tone. Yes. Starting salary is $75,000 plus benefits, full health insurance, a $50,000 life policy, 401k with a 3% match. It's honest work, Victor, the kind you look down on. I could see him making the math in his head. Although $75,000 was less than his previous salary of $90,000, it was still better than unemployment. But he had to work for his younger brother, doing a job he had despised for years. Dad stood up, his face flushed. This is your idea of helping? Humiliating your brother? No, it's my idea of teaching him some humility. Something this family could use a lot more of. Mom was crying now. After everything we've done for you. That's the second time you've said that, I informed you. And I'm still waiting to hear what exactly you've done for me besides make me feel like dirt for most of my life. Nobody had an answer. I dug into my pocket and took out a folded piece of paper. By the way, I paid off your dinner bill at Morton's. Their expressions brightened up briefly, but I proceeded. I filed it as a loan with my company's attorney. I handed Dad the paper. Those are the repayment terms. $6,000 plus 8% interest, due in full within 24 months. You can make payments monthly or Victor can work it off at $250 per payment. Dad's hands shook while he read the document. This is a joke. It's a legally binding loan agreement. My attorney has already filed the paperwork. You can't be serious, Victor replied. Completely serious. You wanted my money? Fine, but you're not getting it for free, and you're not getting it through manipulation. Lauren looked like she was about to faint. Victor seemed to want to punch something. Dad was becoming purple. Mom stood up dramatically. I can't believe I raised such a heartless son. You raised a son who learned to look out for himself because nobody else would, she said to me. And who learned the value of actual hard work, instead of shortcuts and schemes. I turned to leave but then paused. Victor, the job offer stands. It's honest work that pays well. If you're man enough to take it, call me. And what happens if we don't pay the loan? Dad inquired. I turned around for the last time. Then I'll take your house. It's listed as collateral in paragraph 3. It wasn't, and any lawyer would have immediately thrown out the deal. However, watching the blood drain from his face was worth the bluff. Outside, Maya followed me. That was brutal, she murmured, smiling. They had it coming. Oh, absolutely. So what now? You think Victor will take the job? Not a chance in hell, I said. His pride won't let him. But he won't find anything that pays as well, especially with a firing for accounting fraud on his record. Atlas watched us through the window, his head tilted. Maya laughed as soon as she spotted him. At least you've got one loyal family member. The next day, I returned to work as if nothing had happened. I needed to analyze 3 contract bids, approve a maintenance plan, and conduct an interview with a potential replacement driver. 2 weeks later, Victor proved me incorrect. He showed up in my workplace. He looked like hell. I'll take the job, he answered, avoiding my gaze. I looked at him for a moment. Part of me wanted to brag, to shove it in his face. But that's not how I run my business. Good, I said. You start Monday, 5 a.m. sharp. I've never driven anything bigger than my BMW, he revealed. We'll put you through training. You'll need to get your CDL. It'll take a few weeks, but we'll get you there. He felt relieved and thanked me for the first time in his life. After he had left, I called Cole. You're not going to believe this. Victor took the job. Holy, Cole exclaimed. Hell must be freezing over. We'll see how long he lasts, I said. My bet is 3 weeks, Cole stated. Want to put $50 on it? Make it $100. Dad and Mom eventually had to sell their home and relocate to a modest apartment. They still tell family and friends that I'm the monster who won't aid them in their time of need. That's all right with me. I learned a long time ago that you cannot control what others think of you. What about the loan agreement? I never filed, nor enforced it. That was not the point. The aim was to demonstrate them that they couldn't influence me anymore. Victor worked as a driver for 3 months before resigning. I won the bet with Cole. However, those 3 months altered him. He had a new regard for what I do. After that, he landed an entry-level accounting job that paid around half of his previous salary. Lauren thanked me for giving him a chance and said he's changed now, over coffee one day. Victor and I are not tight, but we are civil today. He occasionally invites his kids over to swim in my pool and play with Atlas. His son believes Uncle Ryan's trucks are the coolest ever. Maybe eventually I'll teach him how to drive one. Maya lived in my guest house for a while before opening her own tattoo shop with a small business loan that I co-signed for her. She's doing great. She's booked solid for 3 months out and has a developing reputation for custom mechanical designs like the ones on my arm. She repaid the loan in full a year early. Mom still does not speak to me much. Dad tries on occasion, generally when he needs something. I keep them at arm's length. Last month, I added 2 more vehicles to my fleet, signed an annual contract with a national retail chain, and purchased another rental property, which will increase my monthly passive income by $1,900. Business is growing. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had yielded that night at Morton's. If I had paid the bill and continued to be treated as a failure with money. It would not have ended. One bill would have resulted in another. Then came mortgage payments, credit card bailouts, and loans that could never be returned. Instead, I stood my ground, established boundaries, and forced them to face reality. Cole continues to give me grief over everything. Atlas still rides shotgun wherever I go. And I still am not invited to family events. And that is the nicest thing that has ever happened to me.